Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the return of Lost the Plot.
Showtime, a-hole, it mash!
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome back to us four boys at Lost the Plot talking tripe about another film that has only just been released. The reason I've not said video is because these are also audio files going on to Spotify for our new podcast channel, so it wouldn't be correct, would it? So, moving on very swiftly, today we're going to review a film that was released a couple of weeks ago now. Bit late to the party, but we've all watched it. And that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. A film that we all enjoyed, so to speak. And Matt's going to talk about the negatives for a little bit to start us off. Should we give it a rating, gents?
Let's go for it.
Because we always do, don't we? We'll start that side with Thomas and we'll go across the table. So our flawed rating system out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Can't keep it on. Yeah, I'm going for an 8 out of 10 as well.
I'm going for an 8 out of 10.
I'm going for an 8 out of 10.
Shut your mouths.
There you go.
That's a first.
That
Yeah,
has
I
to
think
be
that
a
might
first.
be a
That's
first.
never going to happen again.
Oh
No.
my god. I don't know what to
Well,
say now. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Oh my word.
Yeah, we've completed it now.
That's it, yeah. We've peaked.
That's it. I think
Where do we go
Becoming
from
one
here?
person.
we're slowly merging into one.
Who's going to be the bastard in this one?
Well, Matt, by the sounds of it, I've already thrown that out there, haven't I?
Yeah.
Matt's going to talk about the negatives.
Oh, I've got the same rating as you. You must have some negatives.
No, I
as well.
don't. Yeah, but I've said that I don't want to talk about the negatives for the film because I feel like I had far too much emotional experience throughout it, and I don't want to sit there and slander it.
So I'll do that for you.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. As we normally do with our reviews, we know it's been a few months since we've released a video, but we will talk about the negatives first because I feel like there's more positives than negatives. We want to get them out of the way and finish the video on a high. So, since we've already talked about it, Matt's got the negatives. Start us off. What is the negative of the film?
I didn't think it was as funny as the first two. I thought, whilst it was funny, I felt like a lot of the jokes didn't land as well. At the same, I don't know how you felt about it. I know it was more character driven than the first two, which makes sense. It's not trying to be funny all the time, but I feel like there was quite a lot of lines that I felt were kind of flat compared to the first two. I found myself laughing more in the first couple.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I-
that's not a massive negative. That's just
No,
a
not
kind of little
Yeah.
nitpick I have.
In a sense, with that, it probably comes into a bigger part of it. Because I feel like someone's probably going to bring it up at some point. But that side of it came as more of a surprise because, say, things like Warlock, I think everyone was probably tricked into thinking, oh, he's gone to the gym. It's going to be he's going to be this powerhouse, super serious character. And then because it was obviously a bit of a comedy performance and not much of a main performance, you were a bit thrown off by you don't know how much to get invested in this. And I don't know if that's the best way of putting it, but he seemed to be the main example of that.
I agree with that. I disagree with what you said. I feel like, I agree with it in the sense that the lines from Adam Warlock were the ones that felt forced and fell flat. I feel like the lines from the actual Guardians themselves didn't, because they're already established characters, and they naturally are funny with the things that they say and how they interact with one another. And that's how I felt when they were joking and communicating. The lines didn't fall flat. When it was Adam Warlock making jokes or saying these one-liners, even the High Priestess, that's when they fell flat for me. I don't agree with the Guardians because I'm going to be honest, I found it quite funny.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get your opinions on it because humour's obviously subjective.
Yeah.
But I found the first two really funny, like throughout, and there wasn't a time where I was thinking, like, I don't know, it was feeling forced or anything. But I felt like a couple of times in this film, they just didn't hit. Well, it wasn't just Adam Warlock as well for me. It was like a couple of like Drax's lines or Mantis or whatever, and I don't know. I just felt like it was just didn't get a reaction out of me. To be fair. But I don't know. Yeah,
That's fair.
It's
I
not-
didn't
it's not
find-
a massive negative of the film. It doesn't take me out of it.
Well, I didn't find Dungeons and Dragons funny, and everyone else did.
Yeah,
So it's all right, Matt. It's
Didn't bother
fine.
watching it.
That's not. It's normal. Okay, it's normal.
I'm just riffing off that a little bit. I didn't really like Warlock that much. I was just a bit
I
like,
think many people did. Didn't
no.
they?
Yeah, that
I
was-
was like, I don't know. It sort of felt like they've sort of teased
just
it for the
came with too
past
much
two movies,
expectation, like.
and it was like, oh, is that it? I was expecting a bit more, and it felt like they've really like bigged it up to be not a lot.
I was glad with how small of a part it was. I didn't want it to actually take over because I was worried about that.
Yeah.
And I think this is what I mean about why I brought it up with the being funny is the fact that the point with him, it felt like that. It's not like it was a mistake. It was a conscious choice. His felt like a conscious choice, whereas if there was any jokes that fell flat with everyone else, they would have just fell flat. I don't particularly agree that they did, but with him, that was a decision.
Yeah,
It was meant
definitely.
to be awkward and like if you liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't. But I think it was just a bit of a. It's like we're saying, the expectation that added up to it. I think there was a hell of a lot of that playing into it. So I've not tried to decide too much about it at this point because I think I'm still jarred by like maybe what I thought was going to happen rather than what we got. I think I'm still in that sort of weird bit where I've not really made my mind up. With him particularly.
Yeah, I get that, and I feel like with the. You're right with the expectation. I feel we talked about Adam Warlock for the first freaking 5 minutes, but with the expectation, I think because he's such a strong and powerful character in the comics, we were probably expecting that again. And he is strong and he's powerful, but his personality that then came across with that didn't sort of match. I think that's why a lot of people didn't like it. I liked it in the sense that he was so naive, and they sort of alluded to it when they said you brought him out early because you were so desperate to get the raccoon. And I liked that. I just felt the lines that were written for him were rubbish.
I think that's what saved him was the introduction.
Yes.
With it being that just and I mean it's a great introduction to the story and to the film, but for that to be his introduction, it gets that out of the way. So even when you don't get much more of that, you know it's there.
Yeah.
So then that's why I think, but like I completely understand from the humour side of it. I completely understand where some of that has come from with the idea of it falling flat. But I think it is more just the kind of humour they were trying to use.
Yeah,
which
you're probably
I actually
right.
thought probably complemented the fact that they pushed the darkness. So like with the humour, maybe it wasn't as constantly funny or anything. But the bits were like these little daft bits that really just sat opposing all the really heavy stuff.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Maybe that was a bit of a choice.
I think it definitely was a choice because when you've got a storyline that's so emotional and serious with these set of characters that we know are daft and funny, you've sort of got to juxtapose it throughout the film. And James Gunn definitely made those choices, and I think the vast majority were successful. Like the car scene where she can't open the door, one of the best scenes, funniest scenes in the MCU. Like it's just brilliant, but it didn't feel forced because those were the characters that like an interaction that we're used to. And I just thought, excellent
Those
choice.
kind of things sum up what this sort of series has been as well. These things where they're like, it's so simple what you've just the scene you've just described, but everything's it's those relatable sort of aspects where everyone's been in a position that's basically like that. and that's why it's funny. Like there's barely any words spoken, but it's hilarious because you've gone through it like that, and yeah, it's just that proper grounding relatability to it. Even though on paper you'd look at a series like this and think this is going to be the wackiest series of the MCU, but it's the one that feels the most normal and human and relatable.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, see, so we've turned your negative into a positive.
Well, I still see it as a negative.
I feel
Well,
like
not
there was-
turned it.
I
We've
feel
sort
like there was more negative.
We transitioned, like towards the end of it, transitioned into a positive.
I have a negative about Adam Warlock though.
We've already said that though, haven't we?
Yeah, he just kind of. Well, I'm just gonna say one thing before we move on. Every scene he turned up in, to me, felt like he was an afterthought. Like, oh, they forgot he was supposed to be in this movie, so they were like, oh, we need to put him in here. He didn't feel. It didn't feel like he should have been there most of the time. It just kind of felt like he turned up. I don't know.
I think that leads to the point that you made. I think that's purposeful. I think they've done that on purpose because he's such a big character. They don't want him to come in and take the limelight off the actual main story. They want him sort of as an afterthought.
I think
No, you're probably right,
Where
but
it-
also I think he's important for the future of the MCU at some point because he is that big character that I almost think he definitely will be back at some point. So that they needed to be there just as sort of like an introduction, but I don't think it hampered the story in any way.
I think where it falls for him specifically, as part of the film, because again, it's not really his film, and what makes it more like the point you're making seems to be like when, again, the introduction, you don't know any better, but everything else, it does seem like it's just he's reacting or acting from instruction because he is, and that doesn't obviously make you're wanting to get on the other side of that. So the point is, I think the bit where it feels like this is the fact that you just need to get past it, and obviously when you describe a situation like that, it's not typically a good thing for a film or a character or something. But it's how this one fell, I think.
Yeah, and I agree, but like I said, I don't think it hampered the film or detracted from it at all. I just think he needed to be in it and not have a major role.
The
Do you know what I
benefit
mean?
is the fact that it was a smaller role, I think.
I don't think he needed to be in it.
Shut up, Matt. Right?
Yeah.
He did.
I just feel like they put him in the end credit scene and then were like, oh, what do we do with him?
No,
Because I feel like they were going to use him in Infinity War and then decided not to, and then didn't know what to do with him.
Then again, this is like I'm not saying it's like a non-argument on either side, but like it's a known fact that that's how they run and that's how they do a lot of these stories. It's like some of the directors and the writers might have this sort of plan, but other than a general structure, like even before, like I think people praise obviously like the Infinity Saga and stuff as if it was this meticulously planned out thing, and it is compared to a lot of other things and a lot of other franchises and series. But when it's actually when you actually look at it, and if you take it from all these different directors and writers that worked in it, you realise that the actual individual parts of it are still quite separate and fluid. It's just that they're in that rigid structure, so they can come out with a scene like that.
Separate and fluid. That's oxymoron, isn't it? How can things be separate yet fluid?
Like they're separate parts. I just mean from the MCU itself. So like, because of all the like, obviously it's this interconnected thing, and that's the whole thing, and it's worked up until a point where everyone sort of hates it now.
Yeah.
Whoa,
steady. This film's all right. I mean, we thoroughly enjoyed this one.
They like it when it suits them. And,
absolutely.
But yeah, like this, they are more separate than they're made out to be. So within that, they can be fluid in what they do. It's just that then decisions get made that overarch them because they've got someone who's in a higher decision making role that just goes, no, you know what, we're just going to push this story aside because it's not important to us right now, and we're going to tell this big Avengers story or something. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, you're probably right. Sure. Do you want to throw another negative out there before we move on?
No, we can move on now.
Sure. Positive.
Yeah.
Negative?
No, I've said mine
Well,
already. That was the only
I've
thing.
got one, but I don't
Oh,
think
for
anyone's going
God's
to agree.
sake, here we go.
See, I thought there was more. I was just.
There is another one, but I don't think anyone's going to agree with it, so I don't want
Like a panto, innit? Come on,
to.
throw it out there. This is your last one, and then we're going to talk about how good it is.
Gamora, what did you think about Gamora?
Yeah,
Because
okay,
she
I
kind of-
already disagree, I think.
She kind of annoyed me a little bit because I get that she's not the same person as she's before the first Guardians film, Gamora, but even the Gamora before the first Guardians film felt like a different person to the one that's in this film. She feels a lot more angry in this film, and in the first Guardians film, she feels like she's a nicer person than she feels like Nebula from the first film in this film, where she wasn't like that originally. That's how I felt.
With that, it is a different person because it's earlier on in her
Yeah, I
life
know.
when she was worse.
But even before then, she was still nicer than she is now.
No, I disagree.
We only saw her
thought
at
she
like
was.
a turning point. Like we saw her pretty much
Right
at
on
a
it, yeah.
turning point. Like
Yeah.
almost right at the turning point.
We didn't see her
Or
before.
at least,
Yeah,
at least
true.
before she'd actually just made the decision, it was like just on the cusp of it. So usually before anyone makes a decision, it's like I think that's again these relatable characters that are in this story and stuff. You've got you knew where she was at before she actually did it. Like she wasn't ready to just turn, but she already sort of had.
She was taken out of the point when Star-Lord was about to take the orb from the first Guardians film. So it's still kind of the same timeline as the start of the first Guardians film.
like.
But I
far,
feel
but
like
then
she's a different person to what she is in
with
this film.
that, and then I think just even the experiences that would follow that anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe that
It
presents
takes up a lot of, and yeah, you obviously have to
situation
come up.
from the first film changed it. But like,
Yeah, I think
mean-
it comes up with a lot of like presumptions. Like I think you have to. They've done the whole thing where they're just letting you work out the in between.
But you see glimpses of the Gamora that we are used to throughout her. So it's
towards the end.
yeah, but that's the point, isn't it? Because we've seen her through two films where we've seen a complete change in her, whereas we're at a point now before, like Tom said, before that turning point where, like Drax mentions it in the first film, the stories about how awful and evil she is, and Nebula talks about it, how terrible she is. We're at that point where, yeah, okay, she's against Thanos, but she's still this young, arrogant person that's out for herself instead of being turned by the Guardians and Star-Lord, which we start to see at the end of this film before she goes back to the Ravagers.
I mean, in a
Yeah,
weird
no,
sort
it's
of way, they've like Nebula and Gamora are almost swapped round a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit.
role
aren't they,
reverse.
At this point, like,
Yeah.
I guess that's a personal
they
thing
work
with me
from.
then, because I didn't really like Nebula in the first film because all she did was shout. and Gamora does a lot of that in this film.
Yeah.
So it kind I don't know, it might just be a
Yeah, yeah.
personal preference of what I want from the character, but yeah, I guess it makes sense. But yeah, that's just
No,
I
no,
just want to see your opinion.
no, I
on it.
respect it. Fairs. You're not allowed to speak for the rest of the video. So.
Yeah, I think selfishly, I just wanted to see just more of that. But I think it's because pretty much in the second one, but then through Infinity War, it was just a lot of because of the serious situation that she was very central in. It was just very much just like, oh, like the worst thing is about to happen, basically, and it's just that's all it was. It was just this like, other than sort of her and Nebula in the second one, it just seemed to be this like gradually being withdrawn. So you had a bit of a sort, and then now it just seems she was like, okay, she's really sort of powerful in herself, and like, but was limited by the situation with the whole Ravagers thing, where you knew, and that was the whole point with say Star-Lord was him trying to just reconnect with this idea of family, but really it's just like how small she got as a character, but that just brought out the sort of the worst part of a character, but basically like she's one of the deadliest characters ever. It's just like, and bringing out that rage was just like we never really got to see it. We've got to see a bit in the first one and that sort of her sort of capabilities, but then since then it's just like because she was used as a specific tool in very big movies, it was in very, very big stories, it was just like, oh, I want to see her.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so yeah.
Thank you, Matt, for your input to the first part of the discussion. Damn you! Right, let's talk about how good it was, because we all gave it an 8, and I feel like we've talked about negatives. We've tried to squash them as best we possibly can. No thanks to you.
Someone had to make it interesting. They're not like changing the film for me. I still get it an 8. I still
No,
think it's brilliant.
yeah, and it is, and I
They're
feel
just
like
minor grievances.
one thing that we spoke about, and I think we've all mentioned, is it felt like for this film, Marvel allowed James Gunn to do what he wanted to do, and I feel like that's obvious in the storyline and what happens, and even the dialogue to some extent, because it was a typical James Gunn film, instead of having Marvel dip their fingers in and tell him what to do and include that and include that and include that. It was very much its standalone trilogy, so to speak, which is, I think, has helped the film be successful, which was very, very nice to see.
Yeah.
Lovely. Right.
No faffing.
No faffing. You're absolutely bang on. James, you've been fairly quiet on the issue. Is there anything you'd like to talk about how good it is?
It's just nice to watch a film from the Marvel like post Endgame, which wasn't instantly forgettable. Quite frankly, we've briefly mentioned this earlier on today, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
I'd completely forgot that I'd watched Ant-Man.
Yeah.
I'd forgot it even existed, and that was only like a month ago. Wakanda Forever. I'm not really bothered if I watch it again. This, it was just, it had, well, as we've just sort of said, it had that same sort of impact for me as the first two Guardians films. Probably prefer it a little bit more than the second one, maybe. But that's just because it's fresh and new. Give me a month to mull it over.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that.
Because I do that very often. Like, wow, oh yeah, that's amazing. And then I'm like, actually...
James hates it. Let's...
You're saying Wakanda Forever, it's like people literally just have to listen to our talk on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
To
our
see the
opinions,
difference.
all of our opinions have changed
now,
on that.
Mine's changed on what I spoke about it. In
Yeah.
review. I was too nice to it.
Yeah.
I don't
This is
like
what
it
I
as
mean.
much
I don't feel
anymore.
like this has got that expiry date on it
Yeah.
like the others have.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I wanted it to be, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Which Marvel's not been given me.
No.
And I just love these characters and everything. They just feel like they've actually been served. All the main ones, it felt like they've rounded. If they need to round them off, and some of these characters don't come back now, they've been rounded off just nicely. Like, it's a very satisfying film.
Yeah.
There'd need to be a really good point
Yeah.
for any of them to
Exactly.
Though I don't.
reappear.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think any of them will. Star-Lord, obviously. Spoilers, has got his own. Is it series or film or something?
Well, I always thought
We
with
haven't
that when
seen
it said,
it,
I wasn't surprised where it said like legendary Star-Lord. I thought going into it, I thought, oh, there's going to be something to do with that. But his was the one I wasn't sure, because again, you go into this film expecting literally 90% of the cast to die. Or
The
I
mad,
don't know. I
Get
did.
to.
the mad thing is, me and Matt spoke about this. Spoilers, if you weren't already obvious. If it wasn't already obvious, sorry. No one died,
I
which
find
is
that really refreshing.
so surprising.
Actually.
But there were like three
Because-
times where you thought characters were going to die, and it had you literally on the edge of your seat. But yet they still didn't, and it was still a story that was impactful and emotional, which was brilliant.
I like the fact that they didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
It was like, because to be honest, like again, post Endgame, it feels like, oh, we need to do every film. It's been like, who's gonna die, and it's like, can't
you
it's
just
a
have them
Can
survive,
we just have a
yeah.
nice ending for one of them? Because like, again, Wakanda Forever. That's just about death, really, isn't it?
yeah.
It's pretty grim. And this, even with like all the
It's a
grim
nice eulogy, though, James.
It
Jesus
is,
wept.
but still, it's still watching like a nearly 3-hour funeral, isn't it? At parts, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
It's not like a fuck yeah film. This and Guardians in general, it's like a film. It's like it just feels good, and it's nice even with all the dark bits that they are touching on in this film. To have a nice ending that isn't end on the downer of, oh no, someone is actually dead.
yeah.
These characters that you've loved over for like nearly 10 years now.
At the same time, I feel
So
like
nice.
I'm not disappointed none of them died.
Mm.
The only ones I thought would have made sense to die was Star-Lord and Rocket. They had two moments where if they did die,
Yeah.
I thought that would have been a good way for them to go out. But because they... But I'm not like annoyed or anything or upset that they didn't. I'm kind of happy with how their endings turned out anyway. But yeah, I don't want to see any of them come back. But not because I don't like them, just because I felt like this ended their stories
I
quite.
don't
nice
want to
way
ruin
to-
it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? How many times in freaking reviews have we said that?
Yeah.
Like, let it finish, let it end.
Just- yeah.
I say it about Daredevil all the time. Yet here we go. She-Hulk. No Way Home.
You're still not
I
finished.
don't
it,
mind
have
that. Shut up. Got a lovely card that you drew me to remind me of it.
Yeah.
Sensational, by the way. I'm gonna. Do you know what? That deserves to go on the Instagram. So have a look at that, because this man at drawing is a different level altogether. Like him playing the guitar, he's also very good. We're just pretty useless at the end. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like Marvel.
Panic confidence.
Yeah.
Talk about the negatives. That's what I'm
Yeah.
Oh, really good
Marvel-
cast.
Marvel have a knack of not allowing things to finish, and I feel like
With
they
the
shouldn't. Yeah, but it's like me and Matt spoke about it. Let it done, and I think they'll bring the Guardians back because
Sorry,
they've
let it
introduced.
done.
Let it done. Let it die. Sorry, because I think they'll bring them back because of the characters that they've introduced, especially Adam Warlock. I'd be surprised if he doesn't come back at all. And I know it wouldn't
little
make
kids.
sense with Rocket and Groot, but I still think they will at some point bring the Guardians back.
Well, that little kid's supposed to be, I've read, is Phyla-Vell, who's like, that's supposed to be a bit of a big deal as well. I can't remember off the top of my head 'cause it's been ages since I've read all
Yeah,
the
I was
Yeah.
gonna
bloody
actually
marketing,
bring
but
her
that-
up and see what.
That
anyone
was
thought,
an
but
interesting little thing throwing her in at the end, and I thought
Because
well,
with
she could be a cool character.
Her
to
with
do it.
Drax when he says like, "Oh, my daughter," like
That's
I thought she
there
was.
we go.
I thought she was going to end up being like, "Oh, it's going to be like a nod to like." Anyway, about no one dying.
Yeah.
Up until the point Rocket.
Oh, was that what we're talking about? Sorry.
Yeah, I just thought
Bring that one
I
back.
just thought I'd not say something.
We'd literally
so I
took
can
the third
actually,
exit on the roundabout. We'd gone, mate.
Sorry about that.
until Star-Lord and Groot were facing off with High Evolutionary. Star-Lord pretty much just, and I think, yeah, it was mainly Star-Lord, kept telling everyone, "We're not killing everyone. We're not killing anyone." And so they literally told us for the whole film, "We're not killing anyone." Up until that point
That's
where he
where
says,
they always
"Let's kill
kill
everyone."
people in the other films.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they're not really
Yeah,
bothered
and,
about it.
but
are
the
they?
title always represents the person that dies, and this title was based on Rocket with how it was structured, and obviously the film was about him, but he never died.
The one funny thing with all this
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
Yeah, I said no. Yeah, no, he never died.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Thought we were on a fight then.
with I know it just comes down to like stuff not landing, but like I remember like we were talking about Thor: Love and Thunder, this whole thing where that's actually a trope in a lot of these films with characters all of a sudden like it's basically like a near death thing, and then all of a sudden they don't die. So basically in that it was a problem. In this it wasn't.
I actually thought they were all dead when they faked the three of them that they faked. I actually believed
Yeah.
because of all the hype about this film being sad and emotional and
Yeah.
that hype about killing people. I actually believed it, and it actually had an effect on me when it happened. So it actually worked.
Yeah, it's like Star-Lord like that. I think that was the one to try and get everyone, because obviously all the marketing was leading toward Rocket.
Well,
I mean, if you've just watched one trailer, if you've watched basically everything and tried to pick through everything and seen all the posters, you'd think, oh, it's Rocket's story and that's how it's going to end. But
Yeah, if you've been like New Rockstars and Emergency Awesome that pick apart the trailer, you nerds, just let people watch it. Sorry.
I mean, with Star-Lord, that was obviously trying to like get as many people as possible, and it obviously did.
Oh, it had me by the balls because it was completely left field, and the fact that he was going back for the
Yeah. Yeah, music.
That's the one, the music thing. And then when he got stuck on some debris, I was like, I turned around to Alice and went, "He's gone.
It was how well.
He's gone."
It was because it was so well thought out, and you saw that like one bit where it's like, oh, he's showing his capability, because so many other times it's like he's showing him being an idiot or like him messing up or something, and especially even starting this film actually, like he's just in a bit of a state and he's not really taking himself seriously. So it literally ends with him literally knowing exactly what he's trying to do, acting in the moment, like succeeding, and then being really unlucky.
Physics.
Yeah. I like what you've just said, showing him succeeding. We're used to them all being idiots and succeeding by being failures, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like it's a ragtag group of idiots. Whereas this film, everybody shown what they were capable of. Even Mantis, like unreal. Like Drax as well, like real heartwarming moments where he actually shows some form of intelligence. And it's like I feel like this film did really well at showing us that all right, these characters are there for humour purposes, and they are a bunch of idiots that we love and enjoy watching, but actually they're all actually still powerful and still successful, and they've shown that quite nicely, I think, throughout this film, because each of them had their moments where it was like, okay, this is fantastic.
Yeah, as far as the story goes, that's what makes it make so much sense as well, why that lands, because normally in something like this, when it's rounding everything off, it can feel a bit detached, where you're just going, because everyone's getting their conclusion, it just feels like that's all it is. And if you looked at it in piece by piece, it looks like, oh, they're getting their moment, and everything's just going for that. But the whole point of this being, this series being sort of like necessity and family, and it's just like these things happen. It's like what it pointed towards was they've been part of this group as these individuals that don't necessarily gel and are messed up in their own way, and basically it's worked all that through, but it's only been their group effort that's basically got them all to their point of being strong on their own again. But it's only thanks to their sort of family together. So.
Yeah, but bloody brilliant. I would like to mention, Chukwudi Iwuji. He deserves a round of applause. He genuinely.
Poor round of applause.
Yeah, it's all right. One man clap.
We knew what it meant. A one man clap.
A one man clap. Well, I was going to say that
That's how it
the
is.
clap didn't come from his hands, but that's a whole different story altogether. But the High Evolutionary, sensational. Like really,
Yeah.
really, really
Did
good.
not know what to expect from his
I
character.
didn't either, but
And
it was just unreal.
quite surprising.
Like
almost.
the acting performance.
Yeah.
And one thing we mentioned, the acting in this film actually, I think, stood out quite a lot as being really good for a lot of characters. And he was absolutely superb. And I feel like it's a nice, refreshing villain that we've had that's not looking to take over the freaking world, but instead create one to rule. I love it.
And it's how it's so integral to like Rocket's story, and then subsequently the Guardians. But like, it's how something that's so villainous and potentially destructive is clearly just. It makes so much sense that it's ignored by everyone else, because all these other people, it's like they either don't know about him, or the ones that do just go, we're leaving that alone.
Yeah.
And that's always made so much sense in the Guardian stories. It's like it always comes back to that line of the first one where, why do you want to save the galaxy? Star-Lord's just like, because I'm one of the idiots that lived in it. And that, to me, like sums up their like motivations and why it's always so. It draws you in because it makes so much sense. And,
I love the relationship between Rocket and the High Evolutionary as well. I loved how personal it was, rather than just a villain for this, world conquering villain that none of them really had a connection to. They were just stopping them because they had to. It was a personal storyline for him, and I thought it worked really well.
Well, the story was quite personal anyway, wasn't it? I think that's why it was so successful, because they allowed that story to be told without trying to fit jokes in, without trying to water it down. It was genuinely a touching story about Rocket's upbringing and how he came to realise that he actually was expendable, and the story from there was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, a lot of films that go back to that do flashbacks throughout the film. A lot of them don't do it well. So when it goes to the flashback,
I hate
I don't really
flashbacks.
care.
I was gonna say,
Just
you're
about
the
to
man.
say,
You just don't care about the flashback scenes because you want to know what's going on now. But I feel like this film handled the flashback scenes really well, to the point where I was actually more intrigued in the flashback scenes than I was with what was going on in the present day at the time. When
I agree with that.
When they were trying to infiltrate that I don't know what it was called, but
organism.
Nathan Fillion bit.
Yeah.
All right.
I felt like the
August
backstory was more interesting than
Yeah,
what was going on then.
Or August Corp.
Yeah, but the place was called like the August Scope or something.
Was it?
I think. Yeah,
because it was
it's
like
like a
It was
television.
an interesting thing, but no, I completely agree.
Yeah, on that
It was
point,
grim,
when it
that's
went to
what that was.
I thought the flashbacks were more interesting than what was going on then.
And I think
Yeah.
that's like you're saying, they handled it well, but I think that's how you handle something like that. It's like you don't treat it like this thing to just catch people up. If you pretty much treat it like the main event, even though obviously the language of it is kind of lost on people, but that's probably what makes it interesting, is the fact that they're being treated like the main bit, and the big bits obviously get you through that. Where it actually sort of makes the structure of because the story itself was actually fairly small, like in terms of what they actually had to do.
Yeah.
So the main event was the flashbacks.
But I think
That's my note.
they use the flashbacks effectively to make us care even more about the character that was potentially dying. I think that's why they were so impactful, because instead of, like you said, using them to catch us up with everything that happened, which they did, but actually what they did do is make us feel more attached to Rocket and feel sorry for him in the moment and everything that he'd experienced, because we're used to him being this hard character that's emotionless and doesn't allow anybody in or doesn't have friends, so to speak. But actually, from seeing the flashbacks, we sort of see more about actually who he is and the trauma that he's gone through, which made us as an audience watching it think, no, like, save this little raccoon because he deserves to be alive. And I just thought that they used them so well and so effectively.
It also
I agree.
fleshed out the villain quite a lot.
Yes.
Because if you'd have just gone done one flashback scene at the start of the film, like a lot of Marvel films do, and then just have the present for the rest of the film, and then when the point where Star-Lord eventually gets to that villain, you won't really know who he is or what he's about or why you hate him or what his motivations are or anything, and you have to have this whole bit where he explains his plan, and like it just falls flat. Whereas this one, with the flashbacks, you already hate him before Star-Lord even gets to him because of what you've seen in the past with Rocket and how fleshed out he is and his motivations and stuff. You don't need to do all that in the present day. You can just get on with it.
It's probably why the villain's so good as well, to be fair, because of those flashbacks that we see between the two of them.
Yeah.
I
Brilliant.
think they did a really good job with just going to the High Evolutionary. It was like you saying with the flashbacks, it makes just stupid stuff like Star-Lord's interaction with him, like the fact that he's just joking, well, not joking, but he's knocking down the whole monologue about what your plan is and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the rest of the Guardians, their interactions with him and the whole situation is much more sort of tunnel vision. Like, it's literally they're just there to do that job, and that comes back to the flashbacks with Rocket. Everyone else would be ready to just let's finish the job, and even though Star-Lord did the whole let's not kill anyone, they're ready to just kill him, just go home because they've got Rocket back.
Yeah.
So it comes down to Rocket, and it's like where we're all in the know of what's happened, but none of the Guardians do. They've seen that one bit of like the experiments and stuff, which is so they feel the way that any friend or family would, but they've not gone through it. They've not had the experience that we've had, sort of going through it. But I think that, but coming back to the High Evolutionary himself, it's like, I think this was a rare example of where you've got like a comic book superhero movie, and if you knock a character down a peg, sort of thing. It's not to say that what they were was significantly different from other iterations, but the fact that he seemed pretty much just like a human, who was just basically a scientist, and it was only obviously in the modern day, the present day sort of section where he'd obviously sort of physically undergone changes. The fact how it was just him that was evil. It wasn't like he got this mad sort of it wasn't about his superpowers. It wasn't about all this extra stuff. It was about what actually happened. But yeah.
Can I want to mention one more thing. the hallway scene
Oh, yeah.
towards the end.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
When Drax pulled the doors open, I was expecting him to make a comment or a funny joke and shut the door because that's what I'd expect from his character. But when he just pulled it open and they just went for it, it reminded me of the action sequences from the Kingsman films.
Yeah.
Because that was so innovative. When it first come out, how the action sequences were shot, it was brilliant. And it's exactly the same as what they would be, but it was just excellent just to see all of the Guardians just sort of going at it and again having their moments in like a 5-minute span of just down this hallway. I thought it was absolutely superb. One of my favourite bits of the film.
The little grim bits they sort of threw into all this as well, like we were saying before, like actually seeing Nebula do the whole
How much
The
they
reconstruction.
went
she
with
got
that.
knocked
Yeah.
about. Like in
That
this
was
one.
brilliant because that always freaks me out anyway, like the whole robot-y thing. But even with like High Evolutionary and the whole like that bit where I love how they didn't show it, like it was all out of focus when Rocket's going absolutely ham on his
yeah,
face
yeah.
Like, I love that scene.
because it didn't give away actually what had happened to it.
Well, it
properly.
focused on Rocket, didn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, it was
exactly.
brilliant.
And just how sort of grim that was, and that sort of again that turning point for him, obviously. Then, and then later on, like just the way Gamora just peels it off his face, like so. Yes.
Yeah, it was
It
excellent.
was like I feel like it covered so many little things. This film, like we said, the story and the characters especially, still kept that sort of almost light-hearted, feel-good sort of thing about it. But then it still like trickled in these little grim bits, which James Gunn himself, like I mean I haven't seen it yet, but like he did that Brightburn and what's the other one, Slither and that. These like grim horror-y sort of things, and for him to be able to throw all those little bits in
Well,
as well.
Have you
it
watched
just felt
Suicide
so
Squad
wrong.
he directed?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he does it in that as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
And it's like
that's a good point.
it's one of the things I saw it the other day. A lot of the cast that were used in Suicide Squad were actually used in Guardians 3 as well, even just little bit parts about the film. I was like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But the action throughout the whole film, I thought was done so well and so tastefully. I don't think there was ever an action sequence where I watched it and thought that's rubbish, because actually all of them they weren't thrown in there. Each of them were relevant to that part of the story at the time and had an impact on it, because a lot of the time when there was action sequences, it led to one of the fake deaths that we're talking about, or sort of a key part throughout the film to then go on to the next. I thought the action sequences were absolutely excellent.
And like, I know that couples with the corridor scene, but visually, just everything is just like it's the sort of the signature on it that you get, as you've just said. But from the simplest bit of the fact that like the dark was dark,
Yeah.
and then from down to the colour and everything, it's just like even just examples you wouldn't even think were important. It's like when Warlock gets, I think it's when Nebula blasts him through the wall, but it's basically when he's first sort of, he's not really started fighting at this point, but he stands up and it's literally just bathed him in like red light, and he just stands there, and it's when he's ready to just go. And then you couple that with, this is the thing, you couple just the strong capability of that with practical makeup and costume, which obviously the whole series has used a lot, even if it's down to the aliens on
I feel like they're really
and
utilised it a lot more in this
the
one.
animal sort of people. Just the extent that they actually push with that, even though they don't need to.
The fact they mocapped it, the actual animals, all four of them were mocapped.
Well, I was just about to say, I think the reason why it looked so good and there wasn't an overuse of CGI is because there wasn't an overuse of CGI.
Yeah.
Like I think I saw something
like reliance on it.
Yeah, sorry, that's it. It wasn't reliant on CGI
Yeah.
because this film used the most prosthetics out of any film ever.
Fucking suits were all
But everything, the
weren't
suits
they?
were,
Yeah.
even the animals on the new planet or the whatever it was called, that all of
yeah,
those
they're
were
all- yeah, of
prosthetic,
course, yeah.
and even a lot of the sets were made and they were there instead of using CGI and
Makes
stuff to
such
put
a
it in,
difference,
and it
doesn't
makes it so much better.
It's the combination, because you like it. Something like this, like you need to accept both, like the importance of both. But it's like it's the combination of it is when they know what complements each other.
Yes.
And I've always said this about like when it was getting to the point with films where you could start relying on CGI. The best examples I found were where it was movies that couldn't, like they didn't have the budget or something. So it still relies on like a good director and an actual good just camera work to just go, okay, we know we're going to have this sequence here. Let's not actually look at it, and let's basically control the audience's eye to basically go, let's make this look the best we can with what we've got. And I think these films are a good example of that. You've clearly got heavy use of it, but you just get tricked into not dwelling on that.
Yeah.
Where you get these big, heavy use blockbusters where it's just like, be it something that's praised, like say when Avatar first came out, or something as seemingly meaningless like Transformers or something. And that's actually the point with films like that.
Yeah.
When they handle it well, it works. When they actually use it like they're actually filming a real film and using a camera rather than just going, we're just going to put all this in the computer.
Yeah.
And we're just going to build the model.
I agree. I think it's amazing. I think the use of colour was superb throughout the whole film. It's just really good. Does anyone else want to add anything?
No.
Talks about a lot, haven't we? Christ.
The music's always good.
The music's always good. And
I was so surprised.
Do you know what I loved?
What's it at the end?
Florence the Machine.
Yeah, because when I first heard it, like the first notes, I was just like, okay, like I've not got any problem with it whatsoever. It's not something I particularly like would have chosen. But as soon as I heard it, I thought like, oh, okay, I don't know how this is gonna work. And then it literally as soon as it actually went into that scene, which is a great scene, I was just like, yeah, I can't actually top that.
It's brilliant. I like how they introduced newer songs as well.
Well,
and just introduced them
from like 60s, 70s.
That's what I mean. And then even when he's scrolling through the whatever it is, the MP3 player, whatever, you see the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 10s, and it's brilliant because they've just naturally done that, and as an audience we've not questioned it. But I feel like the music's always good, isn't it? Yeah. The choices are always spot on. Even the start, I thought it was excellent how it started. The film was superb.
Well, it was mentioned by Kraglin at the end of Guardians 2, but yeah, you don't question it because it's like a natural. It's felt like a natural progression.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Apparently, when Groot says, "I've learnt this morning."
Here we go.
I know this. I think I know what you're going to say.
Go on,
when he
go
says
on.
about the "I love you guys," that's supposed to be like us understanding Groot.
Yeah,
finally.
it is
I was
because
like,
it links to Gamora, who understands
Exactly.
what he says at the end, and then we understand what he says at the end
and then you
because
think
we're
about it,
now.
it's like, oh yeah, no, it's actually progressed through the movies as well, hasn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
you sneaky bastard.
I love it. That's brilliant, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be sat back around this table talking to you about films. We've got a couple more releases coming as well. I know it's been a few months, and we apologise, but we're going to try and bring stuff out to you. And we've got a couple more videos that we're going to film the same night as this one, actually. But we hope you enjoyed Guardians 3. Please let us know what you thought about it in the comments. And if you're listening on Spotify, like, share, do what you do, rate it, give us a 5-star rating, and go from there. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we shall see you in the next one. Bye.
I love you guys.